Hello and welcome back to the review. I am. With me is Mike Scott.
Hello.
No, that is the correct level of enthusiasm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, look, obviously 2-0 defeat today. I think it's 7 games, league and cup without a win now. And I think we've been talking about a lot of the same things we've talked about for the last few weeks. There are, things to think about in terms of whether to put a positive spin on things. And but I think where we're probably all in the same place really, where it's great that we signed Brennan Johnson. Not so great that he played today after 40 minutes worth of training. And I think that showed at times. But again, it's where we are. He's going to play a Premier League ready player as soon as he's got one. So I think we saw today a real struggle, frankly, in terms of not just the performance. I mean, you can see a performance like that coming. It's been repetition of that, but it's really you can just waiting for that moment in a game where the legs go and the opposition just dominate and push and push and push. And whereas earlier on in the season we kind of like, okay, if we're having a bad game, we know we're going to be playing till the end and creating chances. We're starting to see that really is, it's a bit beyond us at the moment. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot in there. Mike, I know you've got copious notes in your notebook you got for Christmas. Which shows, they do say it's about the thought. It's the thought that counts. It's, and what do you get the man that has everything? That's what I say. Notebooks.
Well, it was a better present than the indoor watering can that my mum got me.
Did your mum watch the show, or you all right? Do you think with that?
I haven't actually told her about it, so I apologise to everyone on that.
Come on, we have to spread the word, mate. We keep talking about that word of mouth. It's the best way to. Okay, fair enough.
She's a Millwall fan.
Oof.
No, okay, she's not really. She's not really. Come on. Yes, I do have a ream of notes though. And I mean, like you say, a lot of it is pretty similar to what we usually talk about in recent weeks. But can we start with one thing each as a positive? Can we put a spin on that? Have you got one to hand?
Yeah, no, I genuinely have, and I'm going to say this, and I honestly feel this way, and I know it's very.
Don't nick my one.
I'll try not to. I'll try not to. But mine's quite a general one. So, look, what I'm positive about is that we weren't blown away by Newcastle today. This wasn't a performance where we turned up and they were infinitely better than us. They just had far more in terms of energy, resources, and that they had just had more in the tank. But up until the point where it really started to tell, we had created several really good chances. Again, common theme, I know. But we created several good chances. If Hughes sticks that one just before half-time away, that is game-changing. And I know you don't really want your best chance of the match to fall to Will Hughes, with all due respect to him. But so if I'm looking for positives, it's that we're actually, the margins are very fine, at the top level. We are, a smattering of injuries and Sarah AFCON away from being the same team that we were at the start of the season, getting results. But, there's a lot more to it than that. But that's my positive. My positive is we lost today. We weren't battered. You think back to, was it last season it was 5-0? Or the season, I forget. But we got battered by Newcastle.
I think it's 5 and 4, so 11 in 3 games without a goal.
So there you go. Trajectory is on the way. Is on the correct. By 2 seasons' time, we'll be winning this. So good times. What was yours?
And look, if there's nobody's going to be listening live that's at the game. If there's anyone that listens back to this and has been to all 3 of those Newcastle away games in the last 3 years, please get in touch. Would love to have you on. That'd be absolutely amazing. I mean, that is pure dedication.
Yeah, they might be busy sticking forks in their legs and pins in their eyes, because it seems like that's the that's the direction their hobby's going.
Yeah, either that or it's one of those situations where the game is just sort of a bit of an inconvenience to a weekend on the
Oh,
piss.
we've all been there,
Yeah. Strasbourg, for example. Yeah, I mean, I agree. The first 60 minutes were end to end, and I think it was just, I think, crushingly inevitable that we'd run out of steam. But the positive I'm going to take is I was really shocked on 51 minutes. 51 minutes, got the note. Nathaniel Klein off, Justin Devaney on, and I was like, okay, well, what's he doing here? And I was like, oh, Devaney at fullback. And do you know what? He did really good. I mean, I've got to say, I did not expect that. He looked relatively comfortable, albeit, you know, we were having some defensive issues right through the game. One pass was bisecting the defence for both teams a lot, but yeah, he looked solid. So it's good to know that we've got a backup solution if things get even worse. That I realise is not the biggest positive, but
it's not. I mean, he's played a few games. He plays left wing back for the Northern Ireland international team, so he can play the left side, can't he? And he's had a few minutes here and there at right, but he did a decent job, quite right there. So look, there's loads more to sort of get into, and I'm just as a quick nod to everybody, we won't be on a massive amount of time today. I'll chuck the link up for people to join us in a very short while, but it'll be literally probably the first one or two will get on, not so much after that. And if nobody wants to talk about anything and just leave us to it, also fine, because it's we're directly after the game. People are still sort of processing stuff, and it's we're all going to be saying the same things really. So it just seems stupid just to drag things out for the sake of it. But there's a couple of things that I want to kind of get off my chest, I suppose, really. So again, thinking about how we're playing, there's a really good conversation sort of starting in the chat that I can see that's talking about the kind of concept of time on the training ground and set piece performance. And I think Glasner's been quite open about that, and I think that really is. Sorry, something's cut out a little bit for me there. Hopefully my mics are right. Let me know. If not, I think that that's really a big factor for us at the moment. We haven't had a lot of time on the training ground, and that's one of the biggest problems with European football. The nature of it, it's once you've recovered from your previous game, you've got to set up for what's coming in the next game. You don't have a lot of time to work on, the setup. You're just relying on players doing the same thing over and over. And I think the further you get from training properly, the further you get from sessions dedicated to defensive positioning, switching from man to zone, all that kind of stuff, the further away you get from the training ground doing those things, the harder it is for players to get those things right on a consistent basis. And add that to the point that we're playing teams that know this, right? Teams scout each other continuously. They don't just watch, match of the day or whatever. They watch games in full. They have teams of people analysing patterns of play and data. And right now, Palace, if you're analysing Palace, you're like, they're tired. They're struggling with width. They can either defend or attack in fullback. They can't do both. So there's your kind of angle. Get in, overlap down the sides. You're looking at stick in the game, go toe to toe until the hour mark, and then just make a bunch of subs if you've got them, and fresh legs will probably win you the game. That kind of stuff. Those kind of real basic conclusions you can get just by watching any Palace game at the moment. So the thing that people can't control is us creating and missing chances. So we are still the architects of our own downfall, both on and off the pitch. Off the pitch, it's because we simply didn't have the squad. And Glasner came out today and said, it's my fault. Actually, I did. I've been complaining about it, but actually, I did say I was happy with the squad and the squad numbers at the start of the season. So yeah, sorry about that. I thought the Premier I got it a little bit wrong, which is either him falling on his sword a little bit to try and detract from the whole angle of Palace need to spend to keep Glasner, blah blah blah. It's either a bit of a deflection from that, or it's just ultimately the truth in that he did misjudge it, and he is also, as well as those in charge of the club, he is also culpable for, the fact that we don't have the squad right now and we are limping from game to game. Mike, you're of the same vintage as me. Do you remember when, I think it was the sprinter John Regis, his hamstring went whilst running?
Yeah, I remember
and his
that.
dad came on and helped him? We just need our dad to come on.
I don't remember the dad. I remember the John
I think
Regis
it was John
injury.
Regis.
Oh,
Anyway,
no, I'm sure you're right. Yeah.
Look it up, everybody. But that's what we need: John Regis's dad or the equivalent to come on and just get us to a point where we get some players back, where we get Munoz back, when we get Sarr back from AFCON, and bring in a couple more really. So, but
Brennan Johnson's dad.
Well, David Johnson was a wonderful player. He's very, very quick, good striker. Why not, eh? Even with it was Redmond, not Regis. Thank you very much. My brain is not what it used to be. Thank you, Jamie. But it stuck with me, that. So that's the main thing. Google it. So other than asking for the dads of sprinters, what else can we ask for? I think the other thing I was going to say, Mike, and I'll get your strong views on this if I might. When just before we conceded, we're talking about around that hour mark, there was the attacks were sort of coming down Mitchell's side quite a lot, and it was being a little overloaded there. Bruno Guimaraes was sort of pulling out to that side, as well as I think it was Murphy out there as well, and various other players just kind of coming in and making lots of triangles, and Mitchell's just running round and round and trying to chase them, but you can just see the change of direction became sluggish. There was a couple of times where he just got turned and just kind of stopped and almost sighed before having to turn around and run. You can see the legs were heavy. Now Mitchell has to get through a lot of work there, and we'll come to Pino in a bit because I do want to talk about him, and I know he's coming up in the chat as well. But for me, looking at that, I've been hugely impressed with Mitchell this year. He's been an outstanding player, should be playing for England, and gives absolutely everything. But he was done at the hour mark. He's done, and you look at the bench. I know Benamar's never played. Obviously he's not nowhere near Premier League starting level. Sosa hasn't looked great for us, but at that point, to me, and I realise I'm just some guy who watches football, but to me, it's more damaging to just leave Mitchell on at 50%, if that, than it is to throw on Sosa, who's played international football, to throw on Benamar and say, you know what, let's if we're going to lose this game, which it looks like we are because we're being done in every single time on that side of the pitch, it's going to be a really good education for you to be out there, up against those players, and it's. So I feel for Mitchell. This is not a criticism of Mitchell. This is Mitchell doing everything he can, but his legs were kind of concrete by that point, and he stayed on, and that scares the hell out of me, because to me, if I'm ever going to criticise Glasner for anything, it's that it's inaction. It's not seeing what's he's entitled to see it how he sees it. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think in these situations you tend to transfix on one player that you can see is knackered, and then for me, I was watching Hughes. I was going to say one, then I'm going to say two. Hughes and Wharton looked equally as shot. I can't, it's not surprising the amount of games they played. They said on the commentary today they played 8, 9 more than they did at this time last season. There was an uncharacteristic gap between the kind of the defensive two there and the back three, and then there was a lot of uncharacteristic gaps between Klein and Mitchell and the back central three as well. I mean, even more so for Klein before he came off. This isn't just a Mitchell thing. This is a playing up. Those 7 players are absolutely knackered, and they're having to run. Hughes obviously has played less than the rest. He's trying to cover grounds to support the rest of them. I honestly don't know what else they can do. It was great to see that triple substitution. What I would say is you got to get that balance right between not bringing them on too early and it becoming 4 and 5 again, which it could easily do. Mitchell still has skills, even when he's just sort of a wily operator. without the pace, he still has those
Mm.
skills that are not going to be replaced by some of the others. I think JD Camvo did well enough considering how long he had to be on, but I don't know. It's a balancing act. But considering we've got a game on Wednesday, and that you'd think that he's going to need some rest for that. It did seem like he could have come off earlier.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the point, really. So look, again, taking the sort of direction the chat's going into account, I'm usually on the other side of this anyway, saying like just because something went wrong, it doesn't mean doing something different would have been a better result. This defeat against Newcastle, as hard as it is to take, losing 2-0 today might genuinely be the best result we could get with this group of players in this condition. We have to allow that as a horrible thought, but at the same time, you make a really good point. We have another game in a matter of a few days. I realise at 0-0, you could be perceived as that. Say he does that same triple substitution that he did on 85 minutes. If you do that on 60 at 0-0 and you lose the game, people would be quite rightly, probably me included, will be saying you shouldn't be doing that at 0-0. But honestly, hand on heart, I'm looking at that. Same as you, Wharton as well. We've got through so much work. For me, it's the sharpness. It's a change of direction. It's something that Glasner himself has mentioned when people start to get tired, start to get fatigued. It's not that they can't play. They'll play every week. You could play the same players every 3 days. They're not going to sort of fall over and die. The problem is, the further you get into the game, the more that little edge, that little percentage, that change in direction, and the more the players you're playing against exploit it. And we got exploited today by Newcastle doing that. We didn't give them an easy game, but they just had to stick to a game plan.
Yeah, and a couple of things make that fairly stark. So our pass success for the game was 70%. Now, I don't often see percentages that low. And it didn't seem like it was because there was ambitious passes or anything like that. They were the passes that the players always make. Just that little bit of sharpness, the amount of interceptions. That's why it looks so scrappy throughout. I mean, Newcastle clearly, they're they're clearly knackered as well, as most teams are from the usual period over Christmas. But 70%, I mean, it's outrageous. And then the real stark stat, 8 dribbles in the game, according to who scored. Now, usually when we're playing against a team who allows us to play on the break, there'll be a metric ton, and the crosses will be coming from Mitchell and then, Devaney later on, but probably Klein from behind the last man, plenty. There was none of that because they're too knackered to get up there. And our whole game relies on that. Mateta relies on that. Johnson's, that's not really he needs somebody to pass to by the looks of it. So it was an uncharacteristic game at the very end of what seems like the team's tether in terms of having any kind of anything left in the tank. I think he's going to have to rest everyone for Macclesfield, give him a few days off to recover. I can't see any other way around it, really.
Sorry, just missed this super chat a little bit earlier. Thank you, Looney. Much appreciated. So yeah, I mean, I think we probably covered exactly your comments since you posted it, but yeah, and picking out the set pieces there. But Mike, you making plenty of good points there. But there was a question that came in for you. I don't know if you want to take it. Do you want me to stick it up on the screen for you?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I just got to find it now. Here you go. It's a question for you, Mike. It says, "Are you a famous rock star?"
No, I chose to do non-famous music. I have the same name as somebody who is a famous rock star, but no, I play very fast underground music. But yes, fair question.
I know it's a distraction, but I felt like I needed it briefly, and I saw the question and I couldn't stop wanting to make you answer it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool. So, look, coming back to a couple of the points. Well, look, in terms of your notes, I want to talk a little bit about the first half, because obviously first half was really well. And I've already mentioned the Hughes chance, but there was a couple more before that. But it kind of just leads me into how our attacking unit are playing, and again, I mean, there's a lot of talk about Mateta at the moment. So from my perspective, not a lot seems to be sticking with him. I mean, as a centre forward, you tend not to always, to get the most touches. Let's face it. Again, you're in the sort of business area of the pitch. You're either trying to finish something or create something with a single pass. You're not going to be recycling possession, so you're not going to see huge numbers of touches. But his control and his touch. He had one good dribble today where he took on a couple of players before passing the ball to Johnson. But what did you make of him today? And again, is it the same conversation? Is it still fatigue we're talking about while we're seeing this, the little injury he's carrying?
I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but there were glimpses today. There was a particular hold-up player made a note about old school Mateta, just holding the ball up, using his strength, waiting for someone to come in. At the moment, though, it's a bit of a crisis of personality change for him. The players that he was holding the ball up for, have left, and he's now got a different set of players with different skills. And actually, Pino, for example, doesn't necessarily thrive off that. He needs something different. So at the moment, Mateta just seems a little bit removed from the rest of the team. And we've seen that throughout the last, whatever it is, 12 years, 13 years. We've had plenty of strikers in that situation that look isolated. And it's not necessarily because he isn't doing what he's always done. It's that he fitted as a beautiful jigsaw piece into a previous team, and now we have slightly different skill sets. So, yeah, I mean, again, he didn't have a great game, but he didn't have the worst game. I don't know. Today there wasn't really any of those what we've seen in the last few weeks of Mateta just managing to drag one past the post when it seemed easier to score.
No, but there was the moment the pass. I think it was Johnson who played it, pushed it, through the centre, and he was ahead of is it Thiel?
Yeah, I can't. Is it? I don't know how to pronounce his name. That guy was incredible.
Let's just call him Thior or whatever it is, but it's something like that.
The speed that guy must have, because he had 2 yards on him and he made.
I agree on the speed thing, but again, so I'm looking at Mateta in that situation, and it's like at his best. Not when we signed him, by the way. I never thought he had like acceleration or particularly had pace at that point. But when he's firing, he bullies people. Like you'd never be able to push across him like he did.
Yeah.
And that's what really worries me about Mateta. And he did a little gesture after the ball got taken off of him, suggesting that he'd had a little bit of a shove when as he came across him. But it's like the play, he'd have bounced off him, a couple of months back, wouldn't he? It wouldn't, or even longer ago now. Hard to keep track of time. So again, whether that's tiredness, whether that's form, whether that's fatigue, I don't know any of those things. It could be all of those things, but he's clearly not performing to the level that we need him to perform at.
I think that can only be injury, because he would chase loss. But before the FA Cup, the sort of the golden period of like 3 months before the FA Cup, he would run the total pointless ball. He would chase down every goalkeeper that had a ball at any point. So it must be injury related.
Exactly. It's got to be, but it feels like it's a problem to solve that we don't feel we can, And when you, again, with Nketiah continuously getting hamstring injuries and being very, very hot and cold, we really would be turning to Uche from the start. And whatever you think of him as a player, whether you like him or whether you don't, is he a starting Premier League centre forward at the moment? But I suppose where I'm starting to land is the answer is he has to be, if the other option is ineffective or potentially damaging. So I keep hearing that we're kind of trying to limp our way through until we get, the games stop coming so thick and fast. But I don't really know when that is, unless we get knocked out of all the competitions and we're just playing league games. So it just feels, again, I suppose everyone's feeling the same thing. We're kind of like, we're on the cusp of what was promising to be an incredible season petering out. and is, it's I guess it's not unsuccessful to stay in the Premier League and give the cup competitions a good go and give a good showing as we can in our first ever European campaign. That's not a bad thing, but it makes the following season even harder. And when you look at all the permutations from there, so I think we're a bit worried. I'm a bit worried about it. I think that's what's coming across in a lot of people's anxieties and criticism.
Yeah, fair. And there's no immediate way out of it at the moment, is there? I mean, let's be honest. The best thing we can hope for is he puts out a changed 11 at Macclesfield, and some of who turn out to be the next Zaha. But I don't know. Otherwise, I really don't know what we can do other than slowly get everyone back, and then hopefully it gels again. But I mean, we talked last time I was on with D. We both kind of said anything before the Macclesfield game is probably a free hit, and that still feels, until Sarr comes back, it still feels that way, to be honest.
Indeed. Well, let's talk about a couple of players before we maybe give a couple of people a chance to join us if they so wish before we wrap things up. But definitely want to talk about these couple of players and then hand over to you for anything else you want to add before we chuck the link up. And that will be the first up, debut for Brennan Johnson today. Overall feelings on both the signing, I guess, and obviously how he performed today.
Yeah, I was glad I saw Glasner's pre-match interview when they were kind of like, what's the thinking behind playing him today? And he's kind of like, well, I've seen him for 40 minutes. I have no players. What the fuck do you expect? And he's not. It's not a grand plan. Then he's like, no, I don't have any players. And then he's kind of like, well, look, he's already played Newcastle here this season, so he's got that over us. Yeah, I mean, interesting. He had a frustrating start, but moments. It's going to take him a little while, isn't it? He's probably not even had a proper conversation with the majority of the team, so it's very hard to tell. But considering he got booked before he did anything, I think he did all right. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I just thought. I mean, look, there's a lot of things there. I think you can't really ask too much of somebody who hasn't played with the players he's with. You can't expect him to kind of link. Run instinctively. Like, for example, let me give you an example. I can't remember where it was. It was in the first half where Adam Wharton was on the ball. I think we'd just won it back and it came to Wharton. And Johnson at that point's just got to go. He's got to run into the space that, Munoz would be herring into if he was on the pitch. He's just got to spread the pitch, like widen it, get out there, or at least sprint forward between two defenders. Because he's got Wharton on the ball, and Wharton can find anyone anywhere on the pitch, right? You know, if you play with him, you know that, right? But Brennan Johnson doesn't know that. So he's kind of hesitant and sort of coming towards Wharton a little bit and still standing on his defender. And, Wharton has to go elsewhere with the ball. But it was an opportunity to give Johnson one-on-one, running. And his pace is just superb. Fantastic signing from that perspective. We needed pace in the side, exactly what we got. He's a good finisher. He's proven that in the past. So basically, we've signed a good player there, but today, as you've quite rightly said, he's on the pitch because he has to be. Premier League ready player, played Newcastle already. Knows what it's about. He's got to play because Devaney started there in the previous game, and again, no disrespect to Devaney, he works really, really hard, and he's a very good player, a very good technical player. But should he be starting in the 10 position week in, week out? No, he absolutely shouldn't. So right choice in my opinion. But yeah, he did get booked pretty early, and I suppose also he made the wrong decision several times. But you will if you don't know your teammates and you've not had a chance to train with them very much. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was promising. I think he's got a lot to offer. So, but we're not talking about Brennan Johnson coming in and winning the game for us, and what a wonderful signing. But that doesn't mean it's not the right signing, I think. Yeah. So there you go. So look, before I jump into, and you might have seen the same thing, before I jump into the next player I wanted to talk about, there's been Glasner's been talking, and I wanted to get some of his comments. I'm just scrolling down to. So So, talking around the fact we're conceding from set piece goals, Glasner described them as not acceptable. He said it was a good performance, but in the last 4 defeats, we've lost 3 just from set pieces. It's not so acceptable, and I have to find solutions to support the players better. We cannot afford to give so many goals away from set pieces. It's the reason we lost today. I'm pleased with how we moved the ball and defended. We need to look at where we can improve. In second phases, it's just too much. We need to do better. So I'm sure there's more to his comments than that. I just picked up the first one that I could find. But yeah, I mean, I, I struggle because we talked about it already in the sense that we've said set pieces are a big problem for us. But I suppose from those comments, I'm interested in what you think about his focus being on saying it's unacceptable. I need to find how to support the players. He's not saying the players are. It's not unacceptable that the players haven't done anything necessarily wrong, or if they have, it's because they haven't had the right support. And is he going back to that point about time on the training ground? Do you think there?
Well, I mean, in terms of set pieces, it's all learned muscle memory to an extent. So I'm assuming he's referring to ensuring that everyone knows exactly what they're doing in each situation. And Newcastle did the thing of dumping everyone on the back post and then running off, and that's relatively this season kind of thing, last season thing. It's still being worked out because everyone does it differently. So it is an element of kind of American football style, just learning every playbook, isn't it? So I kind of get what he's saying. I still think the back three, when Lerma's there, just seems to be a little bit more disconnected in those situations than when we had Richards. So Richards coming back soon, I think will help that. But having said that, Richards was there when we conceded a load of them as well. I'm sure he's going to take a sort of Austrian approach to it of just pragmatism.
Yeah. But it's the right call, isn't it? Really, I mean, the first thing everyone knows, unless you really want to leave your job and lose your players, immediately you don't sort of hang them out to dry. But it's interesting him focusing on that second phase as well, because it's true, isn't it? When you think about it in terms of how we concede. I'm not saying we don't concede directly from the immediate ball in, but that second phase, and I still feel like that takes us back to the point we started with, which is you lose sharpness as you get tired. You see how many, like for the second goal, how many Palace players were around the ball, yet none of them could find that clarity of thought to actually kick the football itself. And I think five Palace players, one Newcastle player, and the Newcastle player scores. So those are the things that you don't want to see repeat week in, week out, and to some degree we are seeing that. So yeah, interesting comments. I'll see if I'll find some more on that. But whilst I'm doing that, the second person I want to talk about, he's talked about in the chat a lot. He's talked about every single week, and that's Jeremy Pino. So before I kind of nail my colours to the mast on it, look, we've all talked continuously, I think, about the whole let's learn lessons from how everyone talked about Kamada last season before he came good and blah, 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 blah. But Pino seems to be someone that a lot of people are focusing on. But before I talk about it, and I'm going to ask you, but I will say one thing first. In terms of the attacking three, statistically, the best player. I don't say that's my view. I'm saying when you look at the statistics that certain websites garner performance on, Jeremy Pino was the strongest performer of the front three for Palace today, in terms of, I guess, doing the job that he's on the pitch to do, which is play key passes, challenge for. He won four aerial duels today. Jeremy Pino, tiny Jeremy Pino won 4 aerial duels today. Also, before I'm going to go any further, but I'm just saying statistically, best player on the pitch in the attacking three, Mike.
Yeah, he did. He did the ugly side of the game today. There was a couple of times where he was pretty much last man when they were on the break. It was an uncharacteristic performance. It's a strange one. I don't know if it was tied into Devaney being put out of position as well. It's slightly pushed him further back than normal. He had some failed passes, but then everyone did. Yeah, I thought he was decent. Other than probably Henderson, I don't know who I think probably had a more solid game.
Wharton, I think probably Wharton before he tired.
Yeah, maybe Wharton. Yeah.
Again, was excellent. Very good with his passing. Very calm in possession. Worked incredibly hard and made a lot of challenges as well. Did Wharton. So yeah. But again, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination. So I agree with you. I don't think he was a fantastic player for us today. I don't think he played an outstanding game. I just think he did as much as you can ask of him. Where I think he struggles and where people who do not rate him, and look, I'm not criticising those people. I think you're entitled to feel that way. I didn't rate Kamada for a large proportion of last season until he started playing well, and I changed my mind. Does that mean I was wrong about him? Yeah, I was wrong about him in terms of how good he was. But I wasn't wrong that he was performing badly in games. And I think the same thing you can say for Pino. You can criticise him and still think he's a good player, but you can also be caught by the fact that he just, when he loses the ball or when he makes the wrong choice, it's just so visible. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it seems always it's the same kind of thing. He gets the ball at his feet, he starts to run, and you're waiting for him to play that killer pass or take a player on, and you're like, well, yeah, and he just seems to get caught in two minds, or knocks the ball too far forward, and it seems so easy to kind of come in and then take the ball from him. And people get frustrated with that, and then you forget him running 75 yards to be the last man and make a great challenge. You forget him, whipping the ball across, moving possession around, getting in those little passing triangles, putting the ball back to Wharton when there's no angle. He does really good things, but they're not the things that you want from him. What we want from him as supporters, we want him to whip the ball into the top corner like he did for his first goal for Palace, or we want him to stick a cross on the head of Mateta. We want to see that from him. We want to see what the good points that Eze gave us from him, as well as the parts he gives us that Eze didn't. And frankly, we're not seeing that right now. It's an interesting comment just there from We're Racing saying that Pino's overworked. And I think that's a really interesting angle because he's doing everything. He's chasing all the way back, and then he's trying to be the first man forward. He's trying to challenge to win headers in key areas. He's doing everything. His effort is absolutely phenomenal, but we want quality from him, and that's where he's getting criticism, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, spot on. There's plenty of players we've had in the past that got that criticism. Balassi, for example. The end product sometimes wasn't perfect, but then you forget the fact that he jangled his earrings right the way down the pitch on his own to get there in the first place. The only thing that I struggle with Pino and Mitchell at the moment, with Mitchell being as knackered as he is, Pino needs Mitchell on the overlap, and with Mitchell being as knackered as he is, Pino needs to be the one pinging the ball in more often. There's so few crosses from him. The slide rule passes that Eze could do, Pino can't do. What he can do is, it doesn't matter if it's Joel Ward standard crossing, just get behind the man and knock the ball in. There's not enough of that on the left-hand side because we don't have enough pace at the moment, and that's probably due to overplaying and overworked.
Well, it's interesting as well. The way we tend to put balls in the box anyway is we've always gone with the low cross, haven't we? The cutback and things like that. And people do kind of get wise to you as well, don't they? They do kind of just, it's harder if you're doing it at pace, and we haven't been doing it at pace for a long time. It was great seeing Klein get the assist for Mateta the other day, but but without Munoz creating that overload, I mean, it's trying to sort of put positives back on things. I kind of thinking like, well, when Sarr's back, do you give Mateta a rest, play him up top, and play Johnson and Sarr, and then think about having Munoz, Johnson, and Sarr combining on that right side with that level of pace? Does Pino come out and Johnson maybe plays left or Sarr plays left? However you do that, but having all of our players back, I'd be a lot more optimistic than I am right now. But yeah, you're right. We've just got to get more into the box, and it's about quality again. And it was said in the chat by say Twisted Bobo. Anyway, it says this: if you want more quality, spend more. I'm gonna say it doesn't always follow that spending equals quality. It doesn't, and there's countless examples of that in the past. It's just identifying the right player. Yes, spending, but sort of identifying the right players and the right personality, and not going and signing. I'm not going to. Let's just say if Nketiah doesn't come good, it's an example of that. It's going out and signing a goal scorer who doesn't really play in the system that you play in, and expecting him to come good. I hope he does, but that's the kind of thing I mean. So we've got to be really, really smart in how we spend our money as well. But yeah, this squad is paper thin. We know it. Anyway, Mike, I'm gonna give an opportunity first for I think a fellow Chris. But it's very much a bollocks situation. So you're bollocks today, Chris. Hello, thank you for joining us. Please talk some sense.
Well, despite my username, I try to. I feel like with the Pino thing, I thought it was his best game in a while, and I simply think it's a case of he joined us in the wrong season. We've never really been prolific like all those years under Roy and Vieira that in terms of scoring goals, but he's definitely making the chances. He's working his nuts off. He probably should have been blended into the team. Obviously, Brendan's not going to get blended into the team either at this rate, and we should have seen more from him off the bench and things, but whoever got the choice, and I think he's taken it a little bit personally. He seems a little bit lacking confidence going by what I hear he says on Instagram and stuff like this. But I really think he's doing as well as he can, and I don't get too much of the criticism. He's mucking in as everyone else. The only players that really stood out for me for Palace today were the middle two, Hughes and Wharton. I thought unreal, and ran the show in midfield. Really, just the problem was lack of quality around them, and decision making of many of them. So I'm not too despondent, and it's a very congested table this year. But again, it's like a broken record. But have we made those signings? Have we got some depth? Just imagine how much further at the table we'd be if we could hope for more than 1 point or Fulham this month, or could have done a little bit more with the Leeds, Arsenal, League Cup, and the Cooks rotation. It's the same old story. Not too much Lads can do about it. Sorry.
How much do you think the luck comes into that as well? We're very focused, all of us, on the kind of judgment aspect of the club not spending, whether Glasner was fully behind that, as he kind of said this week, or in previous weeks said he wasn't. However you interpret that situation, we've made a choice to pursue the players we did, and keep Gay and do what we did, and try our season that way, because it started to work out pretty well. So when you think about, I'll go back to actually Glasner's comments today, right? So he's talking about the game today, and he's pointed out that Klein had an injury problem just after half time. He's pointed out that Lerma obviously had to go off during the course of the game with concussion. And then when you think about, again, talk about the set pieces to some degree, but you think about defensively, we've got Chris Richards, probably the best header we've got. Lerma, good in the air. You've got Sarr, who in defensive set pieces is near post because he's tall and can get his head on the ball. He's not with us as well. And obviously Munoz as well. He's a very physical player. He's not short. He's about 6 foot, I'd say. So, the players that we've lost for whatever reasons, mostly to injury, but one to AFCON, that has kind of created a weakness that we should probably not have had. Pairing that with the likes of Riyadh as a signing, coming in and being permanently injured, Doucouré never coming back. Remember
Forgot
Doucouré?
he existed.
£70 million for Liverpool at one stage. That was going to be. Oh, and then nothing now. You know, we don't even know if he'll cook a football for us ever again. You know, and you got players like that as well to think about. And it's just to some degree there is a bit of bad luck when you're a club like Palace with the resources we've got. When you're losing key personnel in that way, what do you think about that?
It's true, because we could have had, say, I don't know, August and September about two of them, and then October, November about two of them, rather than like have all six for December and January, or six-ish, whatever it is, that are out in the first team squad. So yeah, it hasn't fallen declining that way. It's just a very weird season too. It's all very narrow, all very congested. A lot of the games are pretty low quality, despite the hype out of the Premier League. It's so many times that both teams gave the ball away today. Again, like a very, I don't know what the word is, like unconvincing, let's say, referee. He didn't have a great deal of control over it. He was leaning a little bit towards Newcastle, but no more you see from most home referees, sort of thing, or home leaning referees.
No, and they put a lot of pressure on officials anyway, don't they? It's actually my main takeaway from the first half was how much Newcastle fans wind me up. And I know that there's a lot of really good, solid Newcastle fans out there, and I know that it's a very passionate city about football. And as a home crowd, you've got to get behind your team and against the opposition and all that kind of stuff. Their reaction to the kind of VAR thing, just straight away, I know everyone hates it, right? And it's margins, but like we're 4 years into it now. Just get over it.
In their defence, though, with this one, the way that the image looked like the last man's arm was further back than the striker.
Yeah, I know, but we've all seen it. We know what they're measuring. Like we know that the image looks a certain way. Like you've had enough time. All of you've had enough time. I
stand next to Chris Clark every week in the Homesdale, right? The stuff that man comes out with, the stuff that he blames the referee for, and you're standing there going, Chris, what else could he have done? Corrupt. And it's
it's honestly. But anyway, but they annoy me a little bit. So they might be like Cardiff fans back when they were in the Premier League before they disappeared. It's just like you're against everything. Just grow up.
Yeah, it's an Eddie Howe way of doing things.
Yeah,
definitely. And he replaced everyone. I think they got booked. They're pretty little bit at a loss about how to rotationally foul Zaha, but he's been gone a while now. So, but it's exactly what they do. And okay, I don't like it, and purists aren't going to like it, but you can do that. There's ways to bend those rules to get those extra little percentages in that. And the amount, like Tonali when he held his face when Mateta was nowhere near slapping him in the face.
Yeah,
and the rest right next.
It's a shame. He should have been nearer to slap him in the face.
Slap him properly.
Yeah,
that's don't when he's lying down. But it's those. But we don't really get involved in those antics too much. I mean, you could say Uche and Pino are looking for fouls, but I think that will come out of them in time.
It's obviously, you know, it's the league they came from, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, look, I feel remiss if I didn't just make a point. I'm not supporting VAR, by the way. I'm just saying everybody's had enough time to know that if it's given offside, it's offside. You might not like it, but if it's given offside, it's offside. Get over it, move on, and just remember that if it was... Yeah. What?
I can't just anyone liking cauliflower cheese or licorice all sorts, which you mentioned today. So,
I'm not going to get into licorice all sorts right now because I've got mixed feelings. Bertie Bassett scared me. It doesn't matter. Let's move on and talk about cauliflower cheese. No, let's move on and talk. What's your problem with cauliflower cheese, mate? It was beautiful, by the way. Made an amazing cauliflower cheese. Come on. Is it the cauliflower?
But, in terms of what just saying about basically go back to Palace a little bit. The problem is you could go on about it as I kind of did and backtracked on it about this lack of squad, and then Glasner has some blame of lack of rotation. But when I look at both of them, I don't really know what more the board could have done or he could do in this situation, and it all just comes down to the fact we had those 5 or 6 out at the same time. And yeah, again, like factors like their height and their influence in the game, and you can really see when Kamada's not there. You can really see when Munoz isn't there and whatever else. And I don't know what's going on with Mateta, why he's got to play every game. And it's just trying to exhaust him so much that nobody wants to buy him. Or we just can't afford to pay for Uche and we can't start him until we can afford to pay for his start. So it's like a catch-22. We can't pay for him until we sold Mateta. This is me purely speculating. Saying to the next club, if he's injured, you can pay for his surgery and his rehab we're not doing it. We're not losing time and money on him. If you want him,
I don't think Uche would have scored the goal on the other day, though. To be fair, Mateta's still. Yeah. He's probably still doing things that Uche couldn't do. But yeah, at some point we're just going to have to give him a break. My one question to you, like, does it matter? I'm going to be really unpopular in the comments on this, I'm sure, but as long as we get 40 points, does it particularly matter where we end in the Premier League if we go on a run in the Conference League? Or
if we're like 2 or 5 or whatever points off the European spots, people are going to eternally moan that we never got that over the line. Never got that.
True.
If we are 10, 15 points off that, and we just focus completely on our cups and follow the great ideas of Ange Postecoglou and just throw league games at the end of the season, but know that we might defend the FA Cup and go for the Conference League fully. I think people, it's a bit of a gamble, but if we win either of those or both of those, then no one's going to be upset. But it's a big risk, and I know what you're saying. Like it just feels like the season could be got at, depending on who Chelsea get in next. Liverpool are stuttering. You've only really got Villa, who we should beat on Wednesday, just like one of those things, just the law. And then Arsenal and City running away with it. And then so you just feel like it is. Maybe we could even creep into those top spaces if we just had that little bit more. And fortune, as you mentioned, fortune too.
Are we not going to run out of time on that quite soon? Before we get these people back,
possibly.
Yeah,
possibly.
Look, I'll take the point. I'm going to let you go, Chris, in just a sec because we want to get Animal on before we draw the show to a close. But I do, just on the last bit on that, I do take the point that you've made, Mike, and your comments afterwards as well, Chris, which is. It's fair. You come at the end of the season. If we've won the Conference League, we're safe in the Premier League, and did as good a job as you can imagine of getting, defending our cup, then you are happy, and you can still plan for the next season. The problem comes is if you fall down the league, you get knocked out of the Conference League, you don't win the cup, and you're finishing, lower than our predestined 12th place. How do you plan for the next season? Especially if you haven't got the manager, especially with the captain leaving. How do you plan for the next season with none of those things? And that comes back to the point that all of us felt that this start we had to this season showed us an opportunity that this club may not get again. And I say that we were on the cusp way back when, which you may remember. In the early 90s, we were on the cusp. We finished 3rd in the league. There was a chance to push on, whereas we chose the other option, which was to sell our assets and accept our lot. Whereas this felt like we'd never get the opportunity again, and now we got it again. It feels right now like we'd let it slip. But the truth is, it may never have happened anyway. Because you don't keep a whole squad fit the whole season. We could have spent 20-30 million on 2 other players in the start of the season, and they could have got injured or been crap. So, sometimes you are what you are, right? So anyway,
Just for balance, yesterday I was reading those the West Ham message board, so it could be a lot worse. And it's a bit linked to what you're saying. It's a bit linked to what you're saying is that they have brought striker after striker after striker. It's like a pox, and even Wolves have brought all these forwards that. Like names that aren't associated to the club, clear off after 2 years. They spent tens of millions on, and we're about to get a sporting director. But we spent tens of millions. They spent tens of millions on stuff, and they couldn't stay there in. So it could be worse.
When you have Wolves fans olaying against you stuff's going bad.
Yeah. Anyway, take it easy. Don't realise that Animal's behind me, so sorry for keeping waiting. But thanks for the shout out and up the Palace.
Nice one, up the Palace. Cheers.
Sure.
Animal, thank you for waiting. You'll be our
no worries.
Today. I forget, you either really like Pino or you hate him. Which one is it?
I'm a little bit in between with Pino. Like, look, for me, it's when the criticism goes into territory of just sort of reactionary statements like, like he's not good enough for the Premier League. Well, that remains to be seen. He needs to adapt and he needs to play in the Premier League. I agree that I thought today Pino was our sort of likeliest person to be creating a goal for us. He had that ball into Hughes that he's got to poke it home. He also played the through ball to Mateta. It was Pino that played the through ball to Mateta that he got outpaced for against Tio, I think is how you pronounce his name. But at the end of the day, look, our squad is tired. The amount of football that we've been playing, let alone the amount of games that we have taken on, but also you've got Mateta playing international football now. People saying he's not looked the same since international games, and that's probably down to the fatigue of playing. And then in game, how that affects us is, say you've got an isolated 60% functionality of Mateta at the moment. That means that he needs a little bit more support from the 10s. So the 10s have got to support Mateta. That's not giving support to the wing backs where you might need them from the 10s, which means that you saw a little bit of Hughes and Wharton drifting a little bit wider to support the wing backs today. I think we saw in the Newcastle game, and it has a knock-on effect going backwards. From Mateta back. Hughes isn't exactly somebody who can continue playing 90 minutes each game without getting tired. I think the duration of a football match for us right now is reflective of our season in general. We've taken a lot of hits, we've taken a lot of injuries, and right now we're playing okay until about 60 minutes, and we're starting to see the effects of the fatigue.
We lost. Oh no.
Sorry, it was just no. It was mixed. Sorry, something just auto played in the background of my feed, so I just got a really loud sort of hissing noise and some music, and I was wondering why it was coming out of your mouth, Animal. But no, look. So sorry, I missed literally the last sort of 30 seconds of what you said. So apologies for that. But yeah, I mean, look, it's hard because obviously you've just given a really good summary of a number of different things. But obviously going back to Pino, your frustration being that people go to a sort of hyperbole, if you like, of, if you're not playing well, you're not good enough, what a waste of money. But I suppose let's just get back to the point, really. When you look at the game today as a whole, do you personally think that Glasner could have done or should have done anything different?
Yeah. I think the Uche in the 10, for me, it isn't working, and it's not going to work. I don't like seeing Uche kind of out there on the right wing, battling to try and keep hold of the ball and then try and create something out of that. I don't think it's his game, and it's not his game in the Premier League at the very least. What he needs to be doing is being played in a position that is best going to suit what he can bring to our team at the moment. And for me, that is up front the replacement for Mateta. If Mateta's at 60% when he starts the game, and then that number dwindles through the duration of the game, then we need someone in Uche to be that man to come on and give us that boost in the center of the field. I think is probably what I'd like to see, and maybe instead of Johnson on the right, because Johnson struggled today. It's his first game playing for us. He doesn't, he's not used to playing with these players. He's not used to picking up the right positions. We had a moment where JP just kicked the ball out to the right because he expected Johnson to be there. No one was there,
Yeah.
So, we've got that to contend with. But also, I would have probably liked to have seen Pino switch over to the right-hand side and bring Drake's Thomas onto the left a little bit earlier, maybe, just to see what he can do. And Mateta coming off for Uche, I think is probably the right decision. Glasner seems to be leaving Mateta on for me just a little bit too long. He's played 3 back-to-back 90 minutes, and then today he came off on the 85th minute. So the man's eating up football at the moment, and it's probably not wise to, because we're not seeing a fully fit JP out there.
No, but it's interesting you say that, because again, I've been wrestling with that same topic and not just on Mateta. We've talked about a lot of it already on the show today, which is the idea of leaving players on too long. And look, I'm not saying it's an easy choice, right? It's not, especially like today at 0-0. I'll go back to what I said at the top of the show. Today at 0-0, I'm seeing a pattern of play emerge, in my opinion, that shows that we're going to get done down that left-hand side time and time again, and something needed to change, in my opinion. So I'm not saying I saw that and Glasner didn't, because that's obviously not the case. And he's got a whole bench of very experienced, very knowledgeable coaching staff who probably all saw it as well. I think the problem is them feeling whether or not they can take action. That is that a situation they can change? Is there a player on the bench that can change that? Can they change a system to deal with that? Can they swap a player over? And it's always not, I don't want to say easy, but I'm going to. It's always easy for us sitting here watching the game saying, well, you should have done that because the end result is this. But at the point where the end result isn't losing 2-0, as Mike said earlier on, is it the difference between 2-0 and 3-4 or 5-0, maybe, which we've suffered in the past. So, but I am in that place, like a lot of people, where I am feeling like, you know, if you spot a player like Mateta struggling, if you spot a player like Mitchell today being dead on his feet, surely with the games we've still got to play, surely it's worth it. It's worth saying, look, you know, I suppose I'm about to talk myself out of it. I suppose there's an argument to say that you either don't, if that's a danger in the game. So, you know, if you're going to start Mitchell and it's a danger that after an hour he's going to be struggling to turn, he's still going to give everything he's got. But if you're thinking after an hour we might have to take him off, maybe the better thing is just not to start him at all. So once you've taken that action to start, you're kind of accepting that the situation's going to transpire, that you're going to get struck, he's going to struggle later on, and you're hoping you'll be winning the game by that point, maybe.
You could make the same argument for Will Hughes, for example. You know, so if we'd have started Rodney in there today, the problem with that is that people then start accusing Glasner of throwing the game. You know? And I wouldn't want that to sort of be the narrative. But we always struggle at St James's Park. It's an incredibly difficult place to go. Newcastle are they're a well-drilled, well-organised team. It was always going to be difficult, even when we've got our full squad out. But you know, I would like to see Benamar come on. I think that's probably echoes a lot with the majority of our fan base, if not just for experience, you know, just to get him used to playing in the Premier League, because you know he's not going to get it against these first teamers, you know, these Prem teams, if he doesn't have a little bit of experience from it, because it's a very different thing playing against Coops in the Conference League and then playing against Newcastle. So you know. I don't really want to criticise Glasner too much, but you know, I think he is starting to confuse me with not rotating players in game. You know, when it looks like they are tired, it is starting it's a pattern, isn't it? It's happening a few times at the moment, and I understand everyone's frustration, because to echo the sentiment in the chat, is this is a golden opportunity for us, this season. But I think personally the season was going against us from the moment that we got chucked out of the Europa League, and for me that's on the board. I don't see how Glasner can take too much of the flack when. I mean, for example, it took us 5 years to replace Aaron Wan-Bissaka with Danny Munoz. It took us a similar amount of time to get adequate covering for Ty Mitchell at left wing back. So we've got knock-on problems where our board seemed to delay decisions. The same thing happened with the end of Hodgson. So Hodgson came in, replaced Vieira to sort of shore up the ship. Inexplicably decided to stick with Hodgson for the start of the new season when Glasner was already available. We could have brought in Danny Munoz, we could have brought in Wharton and Glasner all at the same time, given them the season to the beginning of the season to work with. So the board they don't make decisions quick enough. They're almost like Pino in game, not quick enough on the decision making, and not sure of themselves, So for me, it all comes back down to the board when it comes to how our season is petered out.
I think that's well. Certainly, that's your view. I can certainly see the elements of that. I don't know. I always thought the situation with Glasner was that he'd actually said he didn't want to start until the following season, and that's why we asked Roy to to stay on when we did, that he actually wanted that time away, and we had to convince him. And it ended up being Roy's health situation that kind of convinced the situation. Whether that's accepted as truth or not, I'm not sure. People love a conspiracy, don't they? But I think for me, that's how that panned out. And I think there's been one or two people on record and potentially off record, I forget where I hear things, who have kind of confirmed that situation a little bit. But anyway, it is what it is. But decisions, again, decision paralysis happens to everybody, and I think you can look at the last transfer window and say the situation with Gay sort of stunk of that a little bit, not because, not through anyone's fault of the club. I think it's Liverpool's fault really in that situation to come in as late as they did, and that's probably changed everything for everybody. And I think we probably benefited from that. But it's an example of us going, actually no, that's kind of what I mean. It shows that the direction is sometimes debatable and unsure, but I suppose that's the nature. It's a high pressure environment, and what feels like the right decision 1 minute can feel like the wrong decision the next, and that's what we talk about, isn't it? All the time we do these shows, we're talking about the fact that Glasner could have done something different, but ultimately none of us will actually know if the result would have been better, worse, or exactly the same. I do know I am feeling like giving players off the bench more minutes in a game that's going away from us. If you don't feel you can wrestle it back by the players off the bench, you've then got to ask the question, well, can we wrestle it back with the players that are on the pitch? And to me today, the answer to that, even at 0-0 after an hour, the answer to that was no, we can't. With the players on the pitch, we're not going to get control of this game. It's just hoping we're going to get control of the game. So you can do a lot worse and rest some players and get some others on the pitch. And who knows, maybe some kid comes off the bench and does something incredible. But look, we've not mentioned Newcastle once today, and I do want to say one player in particular, Lewis Miley, today. Really talented young player, and I know he's been talked about for a couple of years now, and all through their academy, really. But really good today, and probably the difference between the two teams at critical moments.
Yeah, not just from an attacking sense as well, but defensively, I thought he was outstanding, really solid. There was one point I think in the game where he was like the last man back and made a last ditch sort of tackle to stop our momentum going forward, which was great. He's a great property to have, and somebody that it's a shame that we don't have anyone like that coming through in the centre of midfield. Especially seeing that Decore has been out for so long. What a shame for Cheik, because he was a bit of a folk hero for us for a little bit. So we are we're suffering in that way as well. I don't know whether we'll see the same Decore ever again. I'm not sure. I also think that he was bought during a time that was sort of a Vieira Hodgson signing. A CDM, a bit more of a sort of what's the word? Destroyer rather than creator, like Wharton and
Yeah. Well, if I might agree with you on that, and also take people down a little trip down memory lane there. If you remember, he was basically the switch from having to have two players screening the back four. We were able to switch to a single player at that point because he was so good. He came in, and that kind of Premier League staying up with Ledley and Jedinak together, and then continuously cycling players in two, just screening that back. All of a sudden, we were allowed to just leave him there and have two little bit more advanced ahead of him, and that changed who we were in the Premier League for a while. But it's a great player for us. But there ain't many who come back after basically 2 years out and are the same player ever again. So I don't know what to think there. It's a real shame.
I do have a question for you guys, if you're interested.
Please.
I have seen in the chat that there are, or at least one time, that some people are saying that Glasner's not being flexible enough with the formation, and maybe switching to a four at the back, might be the right thing to do in this time of a lot of stacked up injuries. So I was wondering what your opinions were on that.
I'll let Mike answer it first.
Yeah, covered this with Tim a little bit the other day. Fundamentally, I think with a full strength squad, you could possibly answer that question. It's always looks better when something hasn't happened. That could be the solution. But I struggle to think what formation we could put in that would make better use of the players that we have left at the moment. So I think it's quite difficult. Plus, I'd mentioned before, so I lived in Austria for a while, and the Austrian mentality is one of turning over every stone, doing your due diligence on everything. So if he was going to do that, he would be as sure of that formation as the formation that he relies on now. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's easy to do. So I can't see.
I remember you saying that actually the other day.
I think, from my perspective, I would say Glasner's system is actually, when people say he's inflexible, and look, it's not just Palace fans saying that, by the way. There's, if you go talk to some Wolfsburg fans online, you can go on their forums or whatever, you can see the same thing. They say the same thing with Glasner. They say doesn't change his favourite players, never changes the system, just repeats and repeats and repeats, right? But people are fine with that when it works, and when it doesn't, they starting to look for answers, right? But I think when you look at Glasner's system, it's not tactics how we often talk about tactics, right? When we talk about Roy's systems and things like that, they were very rigid systems. Players were, expected to perform in the position that they were in to the best of their ability, and that was it. Glasner works a little differently to that, in the sense that the system itself has inbuilt flexibility. That front three can rotate if they choose to rotate, if they're told you can rotate in this game. And again, when we're fully confident and flying, you used to see it quite a lot. You'd suddenly see Sarr at the head of the three. Mateta would have pulled off into a channel, and at the time, Eze would maybe have drifting in behind Sarr, maybe would have gone wide right. And then you'd have the other players filling gaps elsewhere as well, because all of a sudden that lets Munoz come in. And it's all about these different shapes in different areas of the pitch. And I think it was 442 magazine maybe did a really good set of articles on his system, which I don't know if the timeline of us starting to get found out a little bit was the same, but they did a really good analysis of how his system works and how it all comes together. And why it works is because players know their job, and they know where the support is coming. But you see us now, and you see us struggling. There's things that are creeping in that just weren't there before. When players look up for a pass, we're still playing as quick. But how often are you seeing us play as quick and finding that the player's not in the right position? Or, there's two options instead of three. The system is really built around, I think I'm right in saying, please, those of you that read more and remember more than I do, tell me if I'm wrong. But I think the system is built around a player I think it's three passing options when they're on the ball. That should be roughly what the aim is, from what I recall. And
I think as well, the pace being taken out of our team through injury and AFCON, I think has been killer for us. I really do think that's an addition, because I'm not of the mind.
Oh, we lost him.
We've lost him. He was said mind. I think. Oh, there, he's back.
Oh, I'm back.
You froze at the word mind. I think you were going to say mindset.
Yeah. Sorry. So I'm of the mindset that that we don't change formation, that we keep on with Glasner's formation. But I think that people are observing things like Pino is actually a winger rather than a 10. Johnson's actually a winger rather than a 10. Munoz isn't here, and Klein is naturally a fullback, and Mitchell was actually naturally a fullback too. So it's not as if the players need to sort of mess around with how they see the game or their positions. But it's something that I wouldn't want to do. But I just thought it was interesting. I'm of the opinion that as soon as we get Kamada back, as soon as we get Munoz back, and Sarr comes back from AFCON, then it's going to be about managing the fatigue levels of the players that have been, playing in their stead. So, Mateta, we've got to kind of manage some level of recovery for the man. Whether that means starting Uche a little bit more. But yeah, as soon as we get these players back, I think we can really sort of start healing, and I think that happens after Macclesfield. I think when we've got a bit more space in between games.
That's true, and look, you're right there in that sense. I'm of the same belief as you, and I take the point, I take the challenge. When you're looking at positions that players play, you can easily say, oh, Klein's a right back, Mitchell's a left back, these two players are wingers, but what you can't do is change how much time you have on the training ground to work on that system, and you can't change how many of those players have played. I don't know if you're talking 4-4-2. What does that even look like? If you're talking, I don't know, 4-5-1, which was a possibility. But I would just say to that as well that if you watch our shape at certain times, there are times when the back three is a back four. Maybe not in the way you think it is, but a centre back will pull into the left back position. Everybody will tuck in to deal with a certain situation. And there's a time when then there's a back five. There's and Newcastle had a back five today as well, which we actually really struggled to break down. And I don't think the result of us going 4-4-2 against a back five today would have been a positive one, personally, having not had the opportunity to train it. But I understand the point. That's another one of those things where I'm saying no, it wouldn't work, but I have no proof of that. Just like somebody saying yes has any proof that it would also be successful. So that's weird to speculate, aren't we? But it's an interesting point and not one I've thought too much about. Anyway,
I agree. I agree with you generally as well.
We better let you go. I've got to go myself, and I know Mike has important rockstar business to attend to as well. So
no worries, guys. Thank you very much as usual.
Nice one.
Thanks.
Cheers, Animal. Take it easy, mate. Bye bye.
Up the Palace.
Up the Palace. I do like it when people get cut off up the, and I like to speculate on what they were going to say next. Before we go, just to clarify my point at the start when I said we need a sprinter's dad. It was Derek Redmond, a sprinter, just to be completely clear. So I'm wondering if potentially I can just give you a little look at Derek Redmond. I'll just talk you through it because all the best.
Not breaking any copyright laws here.
YouTube's great. There you go. So here's the race. Here's Derek. You can see him in the centre there, running for Great Britain. And imagine Derek is Crystal Palace. That's what we're doing today. And here he is. Here he is, giving it all the hamstring.
Yeah.
We've seen that, haven't we, a number of times?
I remember it well.
We've seen the hamstring.
Well, not that well, clearly.
So this is the Olympics in Barcelona. This was his dream, and he can't continue. It's tragic. I might cry during this, to say now. But look, devastated. Palace are on the ropes, / Derek Redmond is on the ropes. And he goes. He's still going to go. He's going to hop. He's going to finish the race, right? Right. So here we are, limping through January, hoping to find players in the window, hoping rubber guns most open. There's our dad, Steve Parish, coming along. Don't worry. I think Kevin Doyle is still.
It's got to be a disqualification at this point, surely.
No, you're allowed your dad in sprinting, aren't you? Everyone's got their dad in athletics, sure. Anyway, so my metaphor is almost complete. A very touching moment, isn't it? As he's helped across the line. So
okay, so we just need a middle-aged man to come and hug us through to mid-May. Yep. Okay,
so
understood.
If anyone's got any ideas who our middle-aged sprinter dad can be in this metaphor, whether it's Steve Parish or someone else, I just feel like for the next couple of games, let's hope that Derek Redmond's dad is with us, and we can do better next time, right? And when everyone's back, it'll all be different post Macclesfield.
And in true dad form, anyone coming to Villa on Wednesday, wrap up warm. It's cold.
Oh, I feel like I have to end with "Don't have nightmares" or something like that now. But all right. Anyway, thank you so much. Thanks, Mike. Been good to do a show with you. Always enjoyable. We don't do enough, do we, anymore?
Nope.
It's all these young kids doing it, isn't it? But there you go. So, but it's been fun. Thank you, everyone, for getting involved today. And we'll see you again soon. Take care and up the Palace.